Good evening. Everybody hear me in the back? My name is Brent Antoine. I'm the principal up at the high school. I'm hoping that this is one of the last few times that we have to meet here at the intermediate. We are getting close on our construction up at the high school, so when that time comes, hopefully we will not be having to come back here and meet. It'll be nice, state of the art. My role tonight is kind of like, if you know who the astronaut Michael Collins is, that's kind of my role tonight. Michael Collins was the astronaut that was orbiting the moon when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon and were doing all the walking. I'm the guy that serves no purpose and is going to be out of the way. These two ladies right here have been doing this for a very, very long time and are very, very good at it. We've got our two counselors, Marcy Eldridge and Kathy Ernest, that are going to be presenting you some information tonight on some concurrent. We've got this videoed. We're going to try to upload this sometime tomorrow, so if you talk to anybody that wasn't able to be here tonight, we will get that information out to you. But for right now, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Ernest and let her get started with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Antoine. I would also like to introduce to you guys Tracy Edwards. He's back here at the doors. He is our contact at OSU OKC for concurrent enrollment, and he's the one that we do everything concurrent through for OSU OKC. And so as you and your students are going through this process, if there are questions that Ms. Eldridge and I don't know, or there are technical issues with OSU OKC, Tracy's our guy. So he is here this evening to answer any questions when we get done. If there's specific things you would like to know, we'll bring him up here at the end of the presentation and let him field some questions too. You guys all know that we have been doing concurrent enrollment for a very long time. We have been partnering with OSU OKC for the last 2 years, and they have done a really great job of meeting our concurrent needs. We offer classes at the old primary building right now. Hopefully they will be in the new high school next year. They send professors to us so that our students can have that opportunity to have a face-to-face instructor without having to drive halfway across town to make that happen. And we have had a really great relationship. The professors they send to us have been great. Our students get a good quality college first step education to access some of those college courses. And so Ms. Eldridge and I are just going to kind of go through some of that information, what to expect, what that process looks like, to hopefully answer a lot of your questions up front. And then when we get done, if you have additional questions or if there's stuff that we have left off, feel free to ask those questions and stick around for a little bit. We'll be here for a while after as well. So what's the big deal with concurrent enrollment? Concurrent enrollment can save you a whole lot of money. The miscommunication always happens with a student or two at some point in the year that if I do concurrent enrollment, it's 100% free to me and we don't have to pay anything. And I just want to be clear that that's not accurate. If your child is going to do college classes, you are going to pay something out of pocket. The state waives a lot of tuition for our students, and we'll get into some of those details here in a little bit. But what you will pay on average for a class that your child will take is about $115 versus the $450 that you would pay with full tuition. And that's in comparison to when they actually go to college and move into campus, it's closer to $1,000 per class. And so you're getting some really cheap tuition, some really cheap college hours for your child by having them start this process early. The other benefit to that is that they can earn some of their required high school credits while they're earning some of their required college credits that are gen eds for every degree they might go into once they hit college. There's a lot of flexibility in their scheduling. Some of these courses we offer multiple sections of between the 2 semesters, and so they can schedule that within their day however it fits best around AP classes and sports and band and other activities that they're involved in. And it has some built-in study time. I'll get into that schedule a little bit more in detail in a little bit, but none of our classes ever meet on Fridays unless we have a professor that needs to make up some time for Duck Week, or if we've had a lot of days out of school for weather, that sort of thing. We give them the option of doing a makeup on Friday with plenty of notice, but I don't know that I think maybe once I've had a professor take advantage of that. And so there's some built-in study time for their college classes within that concurrent schedule. A lot of our students, if they take full advantage of this concurrent enrollment process, will graduate high school and start college as a sophomore, and we see that more and more every year. There are some requirements to get into concurrent, and the enrollment process is kind of a two-step process. The first thing that they have to do is be admissible. They have to be able to apply and be admitted to the college. That admission requirement is either a 3-point unweighted GPA or a 19 composite or a 990, I believe, on the SAT. They can use a pre-ACT, they can use a PSAT, and any of those composite scores, as long as they have an overall score that meets that qualification, they can be admitted to the college. The next step of that is actually being able to enroll in college credit earning classes, and that's based on sub-scores. Students have to have sufficient test scores in specific areas to be able to actually access the curriculum. And so a 19 in reading is required for every class that they take through OSU OKC, and then the other sub-scores determine which of those classes they can take. And so a 19 in math gets them into math, a 19 in science gets them into science. The 19 in English does pretty much everything else: English, history, psychology, speech. The reading in English opens a lot of doors for our students to be able to take some concurrent classes. The PSAT and SAT equivalent to that, I believe, is a 510. Is that right, Tracy? So 990 is the overall score. That's their composite for the PSAT or SAT. The subject scores are 510. And the PSAT and SAT are scored a little different. Your students, when they take those tests, get an English reading writing score, and they get a math science score. And so there's only 2 sub-scores on the PSAT and SAT. And so the English reading writing at a 510 would be the same as having reading in English on the SAT or on the ACT. And then the 510 in math science is the equivalent of a 19 in the math or science sub-score on the ACT. Okay. So they have to be admissible, and their GPA can work for that. Once they're admitted, they have to qualify for classes. If their test scores are within reach of getting to those qualifying scores, the students do have the option of going to OSU OKC and doing a placement test. They have an AccuPlacer that the students can take for free the first time they take it, $5 if they need to take it more than one time, up to three times a semester to try and qualify to get admissible, to get able to enroll in courses. They can do that placement test as well if their test scores are close but not quite there. Okay? We can combine scores from multiple tests, and so if they took the pre-ACT and got a couple of sections at a 19 on the pre-ACT, and then they took the regular ACT and got a couple of different sections from that, they will take those scores from multiple tests to make them eligible to enroll in those courses. Okay, so the free tuition piece of that, the state will waive tuition for up to 18 credit hours for senior students. Senior year is considered any time after they have finished their junior year of high school. So that summer, after they have finished junior year, they're eligible for 3 semesters for that senior concurrent tuition, summer, fall, and spring. And they can do a total of 18 hours tuition free as a senior. And so we have a lot of students that will do their entire high school schedule, their senior year concurrently, and they'll take 9 hours in the fall and 9 hours in the spring. That's the equivalent of a full 6-hour high school day. They get that tuition completely paid for. They just pay the fees for those classes. Parents are responsible for all book charges and fees. Our partnership with OSU OKC, they have agreed with us that the classes that are taught on our campus, where they send those professors to us, that the book fees for our students are minimal. Those professors go into those classes with the understanding that our students are not going to buy a $120 textbook. They're going to use online resources, or they're going to provide the information that those students need to be able to access that curriculum without having to pay book fees that are skyrocketing every year. And so those book fees are really minimal. At the very most, each semester, our students may be out $75 in book fees. Several of our classes don't have any fees at all for books. And so those are really minimal costs. Approximately $110 in just general university fees per 3-hour class, in addition to whatever minimal book fees there are. We'll talk in a little bit about different ways of accessing some of those college classes. Some of our students do choose to take classes online. And if your child decides to do that, there is an additional online fee as well, which will make those fees go up slightly. So just be aware of that whenever you guys are making those choices. For juniors, current sophomores going into their junior year, the state, once they fully funded the senior tuition break, the colleges agreed, in the area have agreed that they're going to push some of those benefits now down to juniors. And so the majority of the colleges in our area will recognize a tuition break of 9 hours for juniors. Tracy told us this evening that just as of this week, last week, since today's Monday, just as of last week, OSU OKC has bumped that up to 12 hours of free tuition for our juniors. And so with that being said, those juniors can do a class or two in the summer or a class or two each semester of their junior year and see that tuition break, only have to pay that little over $100 in tuition for those classes. As I said earlier, students will receive both high school and college credit for these classes. The only exception to the rule is English, and the rule is that for a 1-semester college class, the students at the high school receive a full year's worth of credit. And so if your child chose to take their senior government class as a concurrent class, they would do that. Since senior government concurrently, they would be in that concurrent class for 1 semester of their senior year, but they would get a full year's worth of high school credit for that. With that, students are able to accumulate credits at the same rate that they would in high school. Because of the structure of the classes, the concurrent classes take up 2 hours in their regular high school day. And so because they get the full credit by doing that 2-hour block for that concurrent class, they get the same amount of credit as if they were in 2 hours of high school classes. As I said, the only exception to that is the senior English. Seniors can take Comp 1 and Comp 2 to fulfill their senior English credit. That is the only class that they don't get a full credit for each semester's worth of coursework. We do require that seniors have the equivalent of Comp 1 and Comp 2 to mirror that senior English. If your children are in AP language as a junior and they take that AP test and pass it, they will get that credit for the Comp 1 from that AP test. And so they would just take Comp 2, and that would get them the full unit of senior English because of that AP test score. But if they do Comp 1 and Comp 2 concurrently, they will have to have both of them to get the full credit of senior English. Okay. Concurrent courses are weighted on a 5-point GPA scale, just the same as those AP classes that we do at the high school when they take the AP test. So they do get that elevated GPA by doing this college coursework. Once we receive a schedule from a student that shows they are enrolled in high school classes, that's the point at which we will go back and change their high school schedule or their high school requests to reflect that concurrent enrollment. You guys probably know we have been enrolling for a couple of weeks now. We met with juniors 2 weeks ago. We met with sophomores last week and went through that enrollment process for them to choose their classes for next year. If your child enrolled in a full 6 or 7 hour day at the high school, but they're planning on doing concurrent enrollment for part of that, once they have completed the concurrent enrollment process, they have a schedule showing, yes, I'm taking college classes, they'll turn that into us, and at that point we'll have that conversation with them of what do we need to take out of your high school schedule to accommodate the concurrent that you're doing. So how to enroll. If you have your child's test scores, you know that they have a 3-point GPA or a 19 composite or the equivalent on some other test, and they have those sub-scores that's going to allow them to enroll in classes. This is kind of a step-by-step of what that process looks like. As part of the packet that you guys received this evening, inside that packet there is a high school concurrent enrollment recommendation form, I think is what that's called. It has places at the bottom for the counselor and the parent signature, a place on the back for the student signature, and there are some bullet points at the top of that. That first bullet point is the online application for OSU OKC. That is step one. If your child wants to do concurrent enrollment through OSU OKC, they do the online application as their first gateway step into that process. The high school concurrent enrollment form and the Piedmont High School contract, which should also be in that packet, both need to be filled out and returned to the counselor. The schedule on the back of that concurrent enrollment form does not have to be set in stone. If your child knows that they want to do a couple of classes and they kind of have an idea of this is what I think I want to do, that's kind of what we're looking for on the back of that form, so we can judge the number of hours that they're wanting to enroll in. To actually enroll in those courses, your child is going to do that themselves through their OSU OKC account once they get that created. And so that concurrent enrollment form doesn't have to wait until you know exactly what section number you want to be in. That can be an estimated guess, and we can help walk them through that process if you have any questions on that. They need their qualifying test scores as part of this process, as I said, and once we receive the contract and their recommendation form, we will pull their transcript, which will have their ACT and PSAT scores on it, and forward that to OSU OKC. Once OSU OKC sees that the student has done an online application and they have that concurrent information with their transcript and test scores, your child is going to receive an email at the email address they use to set up their application account. And that's going to be for setting up their OKey account. I'm going to pause just for a second. Parents, I know that it is so easy to just get on these websites and do this process for your students and put your information in and put your email in so that you can be in the loop on that. And I really, really encourage you to let your child do that process. If you want to sit at their elbow and guide them through it every step of the way, absolutely do that. But it's really good education for your child to know what that application process looks like, because at some point they need to know how to do that by themselves. And when they come to see us and they're having trouble getting into their account and they don't know their username and they don't know what email address is used and they don't have their password because you did all that for them, it's really hard for us to help them. And so I would really encourage you to let your child do that process, even if you're sitting right there next to them, guiding them through it every step of the way. High school students, if you do not have an email account that is not a piedmontschools.org email account, get one. Because you need to be using your email to do these applications. You need to be using your information to start this process. If you're gonna be a college student taking college classes, you need to take responsibility for these first steps of that process as well, okay? So, back to this. Once they have done their online application, they've sent in their recommendation form to us, we have sent that to the college with their transcript. Whatever email address is on the application will receive an email to set up your O-Key account. The O-Key account is how you actually enroll. It's a easy step-by-step process. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not difficult. It will walk you through setting up that O-Key account. And then once you have that O-Key account created, we can go in and actually enroll you in courses. Once you are enrolled in those courses, you'll print out a copy of your schedule or screenshot it and email it to us, and then we'll be able to alter your high school schedule to reflect that you're going to take college classes. So I've talked a lot up to this point about OSU OKC because that's who we partner with, and they treat us really great and they do a great job of taking care of our kids. By no means are you and your child locked in to only doing OSU OKC classes. There are a lot of benefits to that because we do have one-on-one interaction with the people at OSU OKC that they will hold our hand through a lot of those processes because we partner with them. OSU OKC is the only college that's going to send us professors to Piedmont to teach your students face-to-face. And so there are a lot of benefits to that. But if your child knows that they are going to UCO whenever they graduate high school and they just want to go get started at UCO, that is absolutely fine. If you have ties to another school and they want to do their concurrent enrollment through another school, that's totally fine. The process looks a little different. The tuition break is the same, with the exception of those juniors. Most colleges do the 9 hours instead of 12. Seniors are still going to get the 18 hours of tuition break at any in-state public institution. If they are doing concurrent classes at another college than OSU OKC, it puts a little more responsibility on that student's shoulders. You have to walk through that process more on your own than if you're going through OSU OKC. We're not going to be able to help you quite as much with that process. And it's your responsibility to not only get us a copy of your schedule showing you're enrolled, but at the end of each semester, it's your job to bring us a transcript from that college showing that you have completed the course and what grades you got so we can give you credit for those courses. OSU OKC feeds us that information because of our partnership, and that's not on the shoulders of the student. So how that looks, you guys would go to the website of whatever college you're wanting to apply through and do their online application. Every college is going to have some form of that counselor recommendation form that Ms. Eldridge and I have to sign off on to give them permission to enroll concurrently, and the transcript. We have to provide that transcript. Once you have done your online application, You can print off whatever their recommendation form looks like and bring that to Ms. Eldridge or I. We will fill that out, sign off on it, give you a copy of your transcript. You then would take those 2 pieces of paper to the college and do your enrollment through them. Once you've done that enrollment, you bring a copy of your schedule showing the classes you're enrolled in with the Piedmont High School contract, if you haven't already turned that in. And at that point, we would be able to adjust your schedule to accommodate those college classes. Summer classes are an option for students. That process looks very similar to students doing classes off campus. We don't have professors come out to Piedmont High School in the summer. All of that's going to be either online or at the OSU OKC campus, and so there's a little bit less of that we can handhold through in that process, but Ms. Eldridge and I are always here for guidance and answering questions and leading you through that. College classes, enrollment is done 1 semester at a time. And so once we get back from spring break, we will have course numbers and enrollment options for the fall semester. But spring semester classes won't open up until October timeframe. And so students have the option of adjusting their schedule a little bit to accommodate some of that concurrent enrollment. The changes for second semester, obviously we're bound by the high school schedule because the high school does scheduling on a year-long basis. But within our power, if we can make adjustments to allow students to move their hours of concurrent to allow flexibility with whatever classes they want to take, we are welcome. We're happy to accommodate that as we can. This is a really important piece of information to pay attention to. So your child has to have at least a 3-point GPA or that 19 composite to be eligible for admission to the college. Once they're in college, those re-enrollment figures change a little bit. And so once your child is enrolled in concurrent classes, re-enrollment is based on their college GPA, not the high school GPA. If your child gets in over their head and they struggle in those concurrent classes and their GPA drops below a 2-point just in their college classes, they are no longer eligible to take any more concurrent classes while they're a high school student. And so it's super important for parents to be sure that your children understand the magnitude of what they're taking on when they enroll in these college classes. And that's kind of a double-edged sword, because as a parent, your child is going to be enrolling as a college student with all of the benefits of being a college student, but also all of the expectations of being a college student. And so as parents, you're not going to be able to see their grades. You're not going to be able to see their attendance. You're not going to have any idea where they stand, and neither do we. When they go and enroll in college classes, it is their responsibility to keep up with their grades, to make sure their attendance is in line, to communicate with their professors if they're struggling. Ms. Eldridge and I are here as resources. If your child is struggling, we highly encourage them to come talk to us. Let us be that go-between. Let us encourage you on how to communicate with your professors. But as college students, that is the student's responsibility. And so unless your students give you their login to their Oki account, you don't have access to any of that. And neither do we. We get midterm grades on occasion, and then we get semester grades at the end of the semester. One of the great things about having OSU OKC professors come to us is that we meet them before classes ever start, and we get their contact information and they get our contact information. And those professors are really great about shooting us an email of, hey, I haven't seen this kid in 2 weeks. Do you know what happened? hey, this kid didn't turn in the last research paper, and that's a big part of their grade. Do you have any idea if there's something going on with that student? And it allows us to reach out to that student and just question, what's going on? Why is your college professor contacting us? But those professors don't have to do that, and not all of them do. Most of them that come from OSU OKC out here to Piedmont will engage in that kind of relationship with us, but not always. And so as a parent, it's your responsibility to make sure that your child is ready for the magnitude of the commitment that they're taking on by doing these college enrollment classes. If your child is not successful in a college class, if they don't complete it or they end up failing a course, that is reflected on their high school transcript. If they don't complete the course and they withdraw before the course is over, it will go on their transcript as a no credit. If they fail it, it will go on their transcript as an F. Both of those are going to factor into their high school GPA as an F. And so it's important to be sure that they are ready for the rigor of those college classes.
Okay, a couple of things I wanted to go over just in addition to what she said. If you decide that your child needs to go to a different college for their concurrent, you need to be aware that those fees are probably going to be different than the OSU OKC fees. I know for a fact UCO is more. Right now, I think Redlands is a little less, but you'll have to really look at that because colleges are going to charge different fees. And you will have to pay for books as opposed to what we do at OSU OKC with our agreement with them. So be aware of that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the very last page of that packet is the concurrent contract, and it goes into a lot of detail about what happens if your child wants to withdraw from a class, if they get an F. This is how it's figured into the grade point and how it's recorded on the transcript. So make sure you really read through that contract. We will require that you sign that before your child can enroll in concurrent, just so we know that you have read all of those points on that contract. So what we have up here now is our possible courses. We do not have our schedule for fall completed. These are the ones we're talking about. We don't have it set in stone yet. So these are typically what we've offered in the past. A few of them are new. Remember that the English Comp 1 and 2 is only for seniors. Anything else on there that your child qualifies for, they can take as long as it's going to be beneficial for them. And we will talk about that with them also. So one of the things that we need to mention is college algebra, which has changed names at the colleges. It's now called pre-calculus. It used to be that everybody took college algebra in college. That's not the case anymore. There are 4 different college level maths, and it all depends on your child's major. And I'm betting that a lot of your students don't know what they want to major in. And so this is going to be kind of tricky on the math, but I'm going to go over just the maths that will be offered in college and the typical degrees that math is required for. So the first one is quantitative reasoning, and as you can see, this is kind of a liberal arts math. So if your student is going to be in the arts and humanities, human services, anything like that, that's probably going to be the math that's required for them. The next one is functions and modeling, and as you can see, that's the agriculture, math, business, life, health science, etc. That's the math for those majors. The next one is elementary statistics. This is for your marketing and business majors. And then last but not least is pre-calculus, otherwise known as college algebra. This is for all the STEM majors. So anybody that's going into any kind of a field that's science, technology, engineering, math, all of those will take pre-calculus. Now, pre-calculus, if your child decides and they don't know what their major is and they want to go ahead and get their math done, If they take pre-calculus in high school concurrently, that's going to take care of any pre-calculus requirements, and it would also take care of any quantitative reasoning or functions of modeling requirement. Statistics is a different animal. So if your child is going to major in business or marketing, they're going to have to take statistics. But in most cases, college algebra / pre-calculus is a prerequisite for statistics. Okay, not in all cases. So it's very hard to counsel kids on what math to take because there are 4 different maths. You're always good to take pre-calculus or whatever math we offer. It's going to be good for them as a college level math, even if it isn't what they're going to be needing in college for their major. Okay, the structure of our classes. We have classes on 2-hour blocks because they're an hour and 20 minutes a day. So we have 2nd and 3rd hour concurrent, we have 4th and 5th hour concurrent, and we have 6th and 7th hour concurrent. Those classes only meet 2 days a week, as Ms. Ernest talked about, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. They never meet on Friday. So as you can see, there's a lot of built-in study time. If your child is taking a Monday, Wednesday class, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they don't have class during that time, and that's a great time for them to study, catch up, and be successful in those classes. Right now, as Ms. Ernest mentioned, we're in the old primary building next door. We anticipate being in the new high school, and which we are so excited about because we want our concurrent students in our building. It's very hard when our students are away from the campus all day long. We never see those seniors. It's just hard for us, and it's hard to keep in contact and keep in communication. So we're excited about that possibility. Well, it's going to happen. It's not a possibility. It is going to happen. Okay, students, when they are not in classes, so if they have a Tuesday, Thursday, 8:50 class, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday during that time frame, they are not to be on campus. So even if we're in the new building, they're not to be hanging out, they're not to be in the parking lot, they should be off campus, away from campus. Now, depending on how that all looks in the new building, some of that could change, but for right now, they should be away from campus when they're not in class. Okay, going back to the AP language, a lot of your kids are probably in AP language as juniors this year, and they will be taking that AP test in May. Those scores don't come back till about July. And so we counsel our students, if you want to do your senior English concurrently, Comp 1 and Comp 2, go ahead and enroll in Comp 1, and if you end up getting that college credit from your AP language test, we will have you drop that in your Oki account, and you can take another class if you want to, okay? So don't worry about that. Don't worry about your scores. Go ahead and enroll in Comp 1 if that's what you want to do, concurrent English instead of English 4 or AP Literature. Okay, as Ms. Ernest mentioned earlier, the expectation is that you are now a college student, and that's OSU's expectation, that's our expectation. And we know there's a transition time. You know, you're still high school students, we understand that. So that's why we are here to help. We are here to help you talk to your professor. We are here to make those contacts, help you make those contacts. But you are a college student, and as she mentioned, parents will not receive information about any of this. Even if you call OSU OKC, they're not going to give you information about your student. So please keep that in mind as you're thinking about concurrent classes for your kids. I think we've mentioned everything. Re-enrollment, again, is the 2.0. The last point is cheating. And each school has their own policy on cheating. I'm not even sure exactly what OSU OKC's is, but I know that if a student is caught cheating, like looking on someone else's test, that's blatant cheating, and the professor is probably going to let you know what that consequence is. The other form of cheating that we don't always think about is plagiarism, and we have had some issues, very few in the past, with plagiarism. So you guys thinking that you could maybe get somebody else's essay that they wrote 2 years ago and turn it in, No, plagiarism is a huge thing in college, and a lot of colleges will kick you straight out. I don't know exactly what OSU OKC's policy. I would assume that at a concurrent level, we're going to have a big, long conversation about it, and then we'll see. But I know for a fact that some of these other colleges will, you're out if they see that you've plagiarized something. So be very careful about that. So the way that we enroll our kids in concurrent classes is on a first come, first served basis. And so when you turn in all your paperwork to us, we will time and date stamp that to see when you turned it in. We will put those in order. We will put them in the computer and all that, and we will fill those classes according to the class sizes that the college has requested. They set those sizes, we don't. So if they have a full class at 30, then once 30 kids are in there, that section is closed and off limits for the classes we have here. The same is true with online classes, with classes on their campus. There's always going to be a class size maximum, and once you hit that, there's nobody going into that classroom. Okay, so after spring break, as was mentioned, we should have the list of the courses that we're going to be offering with the course numbers, because as Ms. Ernest told you, you will have to officially enroll through your Oki account with those course numbers. And we will show you how to do that. There's a checklist that Tracy made up for us today that shows you exactly what you need to do in the order you need to do it. And so there shouldn't be any questions about that, but we will have those after spring break. This information will be posted outside the main office and on Google Classroom pages. Yeah, you will not find any of our schedule on OSU OKC. Our schedule for our classes that we have on our campus are specific to us. They do not publish it on their website because they don't want other people enrolling in it. It's just our students. So you will have to get those schedules from us with those course numbers in order to be able to enroll in those classes. Okay, that is the last slide.
We mentioned just briefly going through some of this about the option of doing online courses, and I just want to go on record as saying that online courses are an option for students. If the courses that we offer don't fit into their schedule, if there's a scheduling conflict and there's a specific course that they want to take in a specific semester, online courses are an option. However, it is not our recommendation for students to do online courses. I think I'm pretty safe in saying that the majority of the students that we have had fail classes, struggle in classes, not be successful in classes, have been on that online platform. And the difference is that there are big deadlines that they have to meet online, but not as many incremental deadlines as what might be in a face-to-face classroom. The communication is more difficult. There's not a professor standing up at the front of the room whenever class is over, available to take your questions. The students have to initiate that conversation via email, and then check their email to look for the response to those questions. And so the communication, there's a bigger barrier there. And just the time management and the responsibility level for an already difficult college level course grows exponentially whenever those students are expected to do that online. And so, again, as I said earlier, parents, your job in this process is to make sure that your students understand what they're getting into, make sure that they have the work ethic and the responsibility to be able to keep up with those assignments and the expectations that are placed on them. You know your children better than Ms. Eldridge and I ever could, and we rely on you advising them as to what their course load needs to look like to not overstretch them. And so I just want to go on record as saying that yes, that's an option, and we have students that do online classes every semester that are hugely successful. But the majority of the students that we see struggle and fail are on that online platform. And so just be aware of that. as you're having those conversations with your child about, do I do this in the classroom or do I do this online? It is always our recommendation that if they can fit that face-to-face class into their schedule, that is their first choice. We reserve those online options for those scheduling conflicts where meeting face-to-face with the professors that OSU-OKC sends us is not an option. And part of that too, OSU-OKC is generous enough to employ these professors and contract with them to send them to us and allow for those students to not have to pay book fees. And if we don't fill those classes, we run the risk of not being able to offer that as an option in the future. And so it is always our expectation that if your child can fit those face-to-face classes into their schedule, that's the first choice. In addition to that, if your child takes a class at a college campus or online, that agreement of the minimal book fees is not necessarily applicable for every class that OSU-OKC offers. And so just keep that in mind too. Those fees go up. If it's on the online platform, there's an additional online fee, plus you may be paying full price book fees for those classes that are not out here in Piedmont. That is the end of our presentation. Are there any general questions that we can field, that's something we may have overlooked? Okay, we will stay around for a little while, and if you have specific questions, feel free to come visit with us. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Real quick, I'm sorry, just a couple of minutes. If you don't mind, give these ladies a hand for just a second. I want to speak to them just real quick because we have 1,200 students and these two ladies are the ones that are responsible enrolling them. And right now is a busy time. I know that if you have questions, there's a lot of information given out tonight. Please reach out to these ladies, but I'm just going to say this. This is a busy time for them and they will do their best to get back with you, but we are working with our current freshmen right now, getting them enrolled for next year. And it's just encouraging to me because I've worked with these ladies for 8 or 9 years, however long they've been here. And it's refreshing because I had 2 new assistant principals that came into this building and I always thought they worked hard and did a great job. But then they come in and go, these 2 ladies are overworked. And so we're going to try to get them some help this next year. We're looking at trying to add at least 1, if not 2 more counselors as we grow. But I'm just going to say that if you reach out to these ladies, please understand that they're right in the middle of enrollment. They will get back to you, but I just appreciate these guys very, very much. Thank you.